Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff. As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is N2E Fantasy. We're also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we will preview the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, and we will be revealing our takes on the 2026 Senior Bowl, if there's any offensive risers for dynasty leagues or not, and we will also be going over the 2025 NFL awards to see what was correct and what was wrong versus our summer predictions. So, to be fair, we predicted in the middle of the summer before we even got super close to the season. I think we did okay based off of that. But first, Jeff, let's cover some news. Let's start with the Vikings here. What did the Vikings do?
Well, the Vikings fired their general manager, Adelfo Mensa, and he apparently was big on not re-signing Sam Darnold and drafting JJ McCarthy and keeping JJ McCarthy around. So it does seem like he is the fall guy here. What are your takes on this here?
I don't know about fall guy, but his drafts have pretty much stunk. There's a rumor that he almost exclusively just used PFF grades when he drafted rather than actually do scouting himself. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's just something that I've seen. And they've not been good. Their roster's gone down. And we know for a fact that it's come out that Kevin O'Connell wanted to keep Sam Darnold, and they thought we're trying to work out a trade to trade JJ McCarthy to the Raiders. The Michigan connection with Tom Brady, that didn't materialize. They decided to keep JJ and let Sam Darnold walk. And Sam Darnold's now in the Super Bowl with a team whose roster is even better than what Minnesota's was. JJ is what JJ is, and I don't think that they'll be able to move him. So they're in QB purgatory. So the guy that has to go is the guy that drafted him.
Absolutely, and you're not going to get rid of the formerly reigning coach of the year. We'll get to the new coach of the year in a little bit, but Kevin O'Connell is the reigning coach of the year. But Alex, before we hop into some head coaching news, there's some international game news here where the Rams and the 49ers, just put the two team names together there, are going to play a game in 2026 in Australia, and the Rams are going to lose a home division game here. What are your feelings on that there?
Yeah, I don't think anybody likes the fact that a division game is being played overseas. That doesn't make any sense. I know you and I have had a lengthy chat offline about the possible logistics of even getting this to work is astronomical. I mean, it's not just as simple as us being tourists and going over there and just planning everything out. That alone would take a lot of planning because the flight is it's a long flight and you don't want to just drop by. But for them, you don't want to play a game in the middle of their work week. They're, I think, 17 to 19 hours ahead of us, depending on where you live. So they're in the next day already. You don't want to play a game there in the evening and then it be super early in the morning for US time, because US time is where you get the advertising dollars. So you got to plan it out to where everybody can watch. And then you have to deal with over there rugby, cricket, Aussie football, all of those schedules going on in September pretty heavily. So that's challenging. And then American broadcasting rules, as Jeff pointed out to me offline, when college football is in full force, you cannot have an NFL game on Saturday or Friday night. So how they're going to work this out, I don't know.
Tuesday night in Australia. I don't know. Are we going to have a Tuesday night game followed by a bye week? Like, is that a possibility?
I don't know. Like it's so dumb. They're right now. I don't know what they do. I really don't know what they do because it's a day later throws everything off.
Exactly. Well, there are a couple of other games that are going to be a little bit less logistically hard to plan, and that is the Saints to host a game in Paris and the Cowboys to host a game in Brazil. But as you had noted, after the first Friday and Saturday of September, the NFL cannot run Friday or Saturday games. That's how they got away with the Friday night in Brazil the last 2 seasons. They won't be able to do that this season because the first week of football will be the second Friday of the month. So a little bit of a late kickoff this year. All right. So I can't wait for the full schedule release in May. But before that, we're going to have the salary cap release, and that is expected to balloon from anywhere between $301.2 million to $305.7 million. And obviously, it could be a little bit different than that, but that is a big balloon for this year. Alex, that should really help us in RSO, and it should help some teams get under the cap that weren't going to be under the cap.
It should definitely help, but I think it's also going to make free agent contracts go up as well.
Absolutely. And then we have the Hall of Fame class of 2026. It was announced. We have Drew Brees, first ballot Hall of Famer, Larry Fitzgerald, a first ballot Hall of Famer, Adam Vinatieri, kicker, getting in. Roger Craig is a senior member that got in. So he's on his last couple of chances. And we have Luke Kuechly getting in on his second time as well. Any qualms about the 5 Hall of Famers of this year?
I mean, there's a lot of guys that needed to go in, so I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. There's going to be a log jam for quite a while, and I think they're going to change the rules here to make it easier to get in. So we'll see what threshold they put that at now, but the Bill Belichick of it all is kind of weird. Robert Kraft of it all is kind of weird because this franchise was nowhere before Robert Kraft took it over, and I don't think they've had many losing seasons. I know they had one under Bill Belichick towards the end, but I don't think they've had many losing seasons under Robert Kraft. So I know that's the Mike Tomlin rule. No losing seasons. All right, Alex, you get to be right here next. The Raiders appear to be in agreement with Seattle offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. This cannot be official until the Monday after the Super Bowl. But Alex, what is your take here on Clint Kubiak?
Well, this is a Mendoza-related hire, and it's also offense, and it's the supposed next best offensive genius, and that's something that Tom Brady has really been looking for. I think he has done a great job at maximizing the Seahawks offensive line for whatever it is. He does a great job in the run game as well as scheming your number one option open. They've been a very high octane offense, and he's kept Sam Darnold functional and playing well. So he's continued on the Vikings success, and I think Sam Darnold is one of those quarterbacks that can only do well in a Kubiak, Shanahan tree offense, and that is now going to be the Raiders, and Mendoza is a very similar kind of quarterback. So I think this should be good for the Raiders. I'm not expecting them to make the playoffs next year. I mean, obviously, we have to see the offseason, but I think they'll make gradual improvements. And I think the offense will be much better than what it has been.
Absolutely. And back to your Sam Darnold line here of the Shanahan and Kubiak tree. I heard it was Shanahan that called up Kevin O'Connell saying that he would be 100% comfortable with turning to Sam Darnold as the starter. And that's the reason why the Vikings signed him in the first place was Kyle Shanahan, after having him as a backup for one season, vouched for him. And it seems like it's worked out because he's got 28 wins in the regular season over the last 2 seasons. So that's 14 wins a season. And I think that's the most by any quarterback in that span.
All right.
All right. And the last head coaching spot, the Cardinals are going to already have hired Mike LaFleur as their head coach. What do you feel? How do you feel about this hire?
Well, it's another one that I predicted. So I went 8 of 10 for my head coaching hire predictions, which is surprisingly really good. I mean, some of them I had more than one option, so I'll take a little bit of credit away from myself. But still, that was pretty incredible. It seems destined to happen, but I don't know if it will be a good hire. I don't know if he will be able to run a team like his brother does.
We will see. But because of all these head coaching hires and these vacancies being filled, that means that the coordinator chairs that were empty are starting to fill as well because folks don't want to be left without a job going into the 2026 season. And the first one here was for the offensive coordinators. The Bills hired Pete Carmichael, but Joe Brady will still call the plays. So that one seems to be less impactful in my opinion for that reason. You could kind of say the same about the next one here. The Browns hired Travis Switzer as their offensive coordinator. He worked with Monken in Baltimore, and I expect Todd Monken to call the plays for this upcoming year as well. The Ravens hired Declan Doyle as their offensive coordinator. The Broncos promote, as you had alluded to, quarterbacks coach Davis Webb to offensive coordinator. Here's the surprise of the entire coaching hire cycle here, and that is the Giants hiring former Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy as their offensive coordinator. I know you'll have something to say about that in a minute here, Alex. But the Jets hire Frank Reich as an offensive coordinator, who was a teammate of Aaron Glenn on the Jets about 30 years ago. Steelers hire Brian Angelico as their offensive coordinator, and the Cardinals hire Nathaniel Hackett, former head coach Nathaniel Hackett of the Broncos, as their offensive coordinator. What are your thoughts on any of these offensive coordinator positions that were filled?
The Pete Carmichael and Nathaniel Hackett hires seem to be more of experienced guys that aren't going to be calling plays that kind of support the play calling, offensive minded young head coach. So it makes sense in that regard. Otherwise, I normally wouldn't like a Nathaniel Hackett hire, but because he's not calling plays and he's always been a chemistry guy and someone to talk to the players and stuff like that, that's fine. Davis Webb definitely needs experience as an offensive coordinator, and maybe Sean Payton will let him call some plays every now and then so he can get experience there.
Throw him a bone.
I think in a couple of years he could be a legitimate coaching candidate. I think for me, there's every year now there are young coaches that get interviewed for the head coaching job, and that can actually be teams scouting ahead for their next hires, either at offensive coordinator or at head coach, just to feel them out and have kind of a list of guys to look forward to if they have to make changes down the line. And I think he's one of those guys. It never made sense for him to actually get a head coaching job because he's only coached a total of 2 years his entire career. So now he gets to be an offensive coordinator. He gets to learn a little bit more, and I would wait a few years to even entertain giving him a head coaching job.
Absolutely. What's your thoughts on Nathaniel Hackett and Frank Reich being some retreads?
Well, I already talked about Nathaniel Hackett. I'm fine with it because he's not going to be calling plays.
What about Nagy?
Nagy and Wright are, to me, disastrous hires, but they have some familiarity with the head coaches there. And I don't think Nagy will be as bad as Reich, but it's not even Reich's fault. It's just the fact that the Jets are a disaster zone, and we have no idea who the quarterback's even going to end up being.
You heard the rumor this week, right?
What?
You heard the rumor this week who they want their quarterback to be, right?
No, what's the rumor?
They want to trade for Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I don't know if the Cardinals will even entertain letting him go.
We'll see. He's like 33, 32, 33, I think.
Yeah, well, Kyler Murray is going to be gone, and I don't think that the Cardinals want to be left without a veteran quarterback, so they're going to keep Brissett. He's already got chemistry with some of the receivers there, so I don't see that. But I heard
Where?
Carson Wentz to the Jets.
Maybe.
He's played with right.
He has. But I'm not laughing at the Carson Wentz of it all, but I just remembered that JJ McCarthy was hopping on his bad ankle, and Carson Wentz is playing with like a severely dislocated shoulder in order not to play JJ McCarthy in a game. I just feel like that was such a indictment into where we're going with JJ McCarthy. I don't see him being an NFL starter long term.
Yeah, he should have stayed in college longer, in my opinion. But
Yeah, like the Tyler Shuck amount of years.
hey, Tyler Shuck looked good.
I know. I'm not no disrespect there, but he should have stayed in there the Tyler Shuck amount of years. So the open OC spots right now are the Bears, but that's not really going to matter because Ben Johnson's still going to call the plays there. So it's just running Ben Johnson's scheme in meetings and such. The Raiders are going to need one as soon as they hire a head coach. The Rams are going to need one, but they're looking at their passing game coordinator, I believe, is one of their biggest ones that they're considering. And the Seahawks, which is currently Clint Kubiak, will open when and if he officially signs to be the head coach of the Raiders. So that's going to probably be a pretty big one to fill because Mike Macdonald's not an offensive guy, so hopefully he's got a few ideas and thoughts of where he wants to go with that. Anything on the offensive coordinators before we hop over to the defensive side?
I don't really think much of most of these hires or the openings. I don't really care at this point for what's left because they either aren't going to matter because they're not going to be very good candidates, or they're not going to matter because their coaches already call the plays. So
Absolutely. So defensive coordinators, Chargers hire Chris O'Leary as their defensive coordinator. Bills hire Jim Leonard as their defensive coordinator, former Bills player returning as a coach. He was asked by the media if Brandon Cook's catch was a catch or not. And he said that it's still the 2025 season, so ask me next week and you might get a different answer. So he's going to call it a catch next week. So be prepared for that. Dolphins hire Sean Duggan as defensive coordinator. The 49ers hire Raheem Morris after he lost out on the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. Same thing with the Ravens hiring Anthony Weaver as their defensive coordinator, and the Titans hire Gus Bradley as defensive coordinator. So that's going to be a Robert Saleh. Sorry, got the LaFleurs on my mind. Robert Saleh called defense anyways, so Gus Bradley's not going to matter too much there. But I think the 49ers really matter because Kyle Shanahan leans on his defensive coordinator quite a bit on the defense. That's why they went with a more experienced guy. And I think the Bills, Jim Leonard is going to be a big hire too, whether it's good or bad, because Joe Brady is going to lean on his defensive coordinator to be the defensive guy. So what are your thoughts here?
I really like the Jim Leonard hire. The more I think about it, the more I like it. I think that he's going to change up how the defense functions, and he is someone that is going to disguise their looks more. And I think that they're going to retool this defense in the offseason. I'm excited to see how that goes. I think Chris O'Leary is going to be good for the Chargers as well. Don't really care about the Sean Dugan DC hire as much. Raheem Morris, I don't think Raheem Morris gets another head coaching job, so I think he will be with the Niners for a while. I do like Anthony Weaver going to the Ravens, so I think he's going to be good there. And I think he will at some point probably call plays. Gus Bradley, I don't think he's really going to do much because Salah's going to call, but he is extremely experienced in the league.
And I think that'll help for like team meetings and stuff and implementing the schemes that they're going to run for that week. I think that'll really help a lot having an experienced guy in those meetings. So
Yeah,
Salah can't be in every single one.
I think he'll take some of the burden away from Sala, but I this is exactly the kind of hire that you want if you're still going to call the plays, but you want someone else to handle some of the other duties. Because I wouldn't trust Gus Bradley to call plays. I don't think he's that great of a defensive coordinator when it comes to that.
No, I think Salah this time picked two grown-ups to be his coordinators, and they can aid him in the details of this team. And I think Dable is the head coach of the offense, and Salah is the head coach of the defense. But we will see how long Dable's there. I hope he stays a couple of years because I have a feeling this could be a really fun team with those two. All right. So open spots for defensive coordinators. We have the Cardinals. It's currently Nick Rallis, but he is probably going to be replaced by LaFleur now that he's the head coach. So he's the only leftover coordinator from the Gannon era. We have the Browns currently with Jim Schwartz, but he may be on his way out. He may stay. We are on Jim Schwartz watch. And we have the Raiders who are awaiting that head coaching hire. That is it for the coordinator news right now. Any thoughts on any of those coordinator openings?
No, not really.
All right. Let's head over to the 2026 Panini Super Bowl. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's what it was called on the TV guide. I'm not sure anyone calls it a TV guide anymore, but we all know that's what it is. The Panini Senior Bowl. Alex, I watched this from start to finish. And it did take me a little while and a little bit of rewinding because the announcers were talking about the weather incessantly and how cold it was there and how the players were huddled by the heaters. But for me, for the quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier really stood out. He was the MVP of the game. He could be an interesting mid-round pick. And he looked really good for me, given the fact that he had missed the last few months. So for him to be able to step in, look like he hasn't lost time or steps or anything like that, like that's really a big deal. And then I have Cole Payton, who looks like he could be a Joker type, maybe like a Taysom Hill type. He's a lefty, but does not look like an NFL long-term starter. Diego Pavia, probably a career backup if he makes an NFL roster. I didn't think that he was good enough in this game to make an NFL roster, but I don't expect him to be a starter, get any starts. The one that was interesting to me, but he's very raw, was Talon Green. He's electric, but he was making very poor decisions. So you'd need to sit for a bit before competing for a starting role. And the Ravens or the team that signs Malik Willis should consider drafting him as a understudy to one of those two quarterbacks because I think his style is very similar to that.
No. I like Nussmeier a lot for a mid-round range anyway. Not enough to take early, but like third, fourth round pick with upside. He had a muscle injury in his last year in college. It's affected him. Otherwise, before that, he was looking like he might have been a borderline or straight outright first round pick. I don't like Diego at all. I think his personality stinks. I think he's too short. He said the guy that he looked up to was Johnny Manziel. That's an instant. That's not just one red flag. That's multiple red flags. There's no way. There's no way. So someone might draft him. I think that's a wasted roster spot, in my opinion.
Got to be some Johnny Manziel love, right?
Johnny football.
Anyone else that you noticed from the quarterback position?
So in this game, no. I mean, I would have loved to see Eller play. I don't think he is doing anything until he arranges like a private workout. Honestly, the only other quarterback play was just poor.
Absolutely. All right, let's hop over to the running backs here. And what I noticed early on was Mike Washington Jr. He could be a very physical first and second down back in the NFL. There was Kalen Black. He had a game high on yards. I just don't know if it's his speed or if it's skill, because it doesn't seem like he was getting contact or hitting holes. It just seems like he was beating people to the edge, and that'll only work for so long in the NFL. So I needed to see a little bit more from him to be excited. Then we have Jaden, who looked good, scored the touchdown. I need to see more, but he may be undervalued in the draft. Jamari Taylor had excellent burst and vision hitting the hole, and I think he's someone that should be taken with a mid-round draft pick. Seth McGowan had a very up and down day. Kajon Owens scores late, but he had a brutal drop, and you can't have those drops as running backs in the NFL. So I know drops were a big story in this game, so this is just the first time that I'm going to mention it, but that was my running back takes from this game.
Yeah. Mike Washington Jr. looked great in pass protection, and he showed good vision, power, receiving. I think he's going to be an interesting guy to keep an eye on. Jaden Ott out of Oklahoma, Kalen Black out of Indiana. Got a foot fracture in the game, so
that's not good.
I don't like taking running backs or anyone that already start out hurt. I don't like it. And then we've definitely seen with Brooks how that's panned out, and it's not fun. It's not fun. So maybe if he's cheap enough and you can stash him, maybe, but he's out of the first round conversation for me for dynasty leagues.
What did you think of Jamari Taylor?
Jamari Taylor? Not really.
We'll see. I really liked the way that he ran the ball, so I think it could translate to the NFL, but the NFL does look for backs that can pass protect, like Mike Washington Jr. as a very early skill that they look for in rookies. So that's kind of unknowable just from this game. All right, hop into wide receivers. We have Lewis Bond, who had some great blocking. Didn't show up in the stat sheet that much, but teams will look for that blocking. I know that really helped Puka Nacua get drafted. People like those wide receivers that are willing to be dirty and help the run game out. Malachi Fields makes the most of his opportunities, could be a valuable add. My current projection for him on a team this year would be 53 catches, 633 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So I'm sure there's plenty of teams that could use that production. And we have McCulley leading the game in catches and yards, but he made the most of his chances as well. So it's was not a big wide receiver day just due to the weather, because you're going to hear me talk about the weather a little bit later as well. And what about you and wide receivers in this game here?
So wide receivers, Tyron Montgomery, the John Carroll wide receiver, looked really good. Ted Hurst, Georgia State. Malachi Fields, I agree, the Notre Dame wide receiver, looks like he could be he's probably going to go day 2, maybe early day 3, but he looks like he could outperform that easily, and I think he'd be a really good physical, athletic wide receiver. So I like those 3 guys from this game. Other ones, I think Josh Cameron was okay. Didn't really notice that much else when I watched it.
All right, let's move over to the tight ends. It was a rough day for all tight ends involved. John Michael Gillenborg cost his quarterback an interception and had bad hands in this game and should fall in the draft just due to it's a skill for a tight end. It's a required skill, so and he just doesn't have it right now. Was there anything that I missed on the tight ends?
I thought Reggie Virgil at Texas Tech looked okay at tight end. I liked the Houston tight end Tanner Kozel, Nate Borkircher out of Texas A&M, and Sam Roush out of Stanford. No one was really super flashy. No one really had a lot of production, but those are the guys that stood out to me that I'm curious about. I think Reggie Virgil out of Texas Tech is highly underrated in the prospect talk for tight end. I'm not sure people view him as highly as they should.
Yeah, so we'll see. I did note that the American team had some great O-line play, so that is good for the NFL as well. So we'll see how NFL ready they truly are, but they looked NFL ready in this game. And as I mentioned earlier, horrible drops in this game. Bryson Eason he has electric energy. And the game was cold. The announcers told us a million times, and some of the players are not built for cold atmosphere, and that was very clear with how they were huddled around the heaters. And it's telling to me like how they're going to do in like a Buffalo or a Kansas City or Baltimore or Cleveland, any of those outdoor teams, the New Jersey teams. It's pretty telling. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think both of these senior kickers had pretty difficult kicks that they made in this game. So that was pretty cool to see. And we might have two draftable kickers in this draft. So this could be like a seventh round draft choice. And it is annoying as a viewer when there's interviews mid game and I just want to watch the players play. I don't want to listen to the guy from Panini to talk about why they're part of a sponsorship for 8 minutes when I want to watch the play and listen to the announcers call the actual play.
I agree.
I feel like halftime would be a better time to do these interviews. Maybe. I don't know, but we'll see. Any other notes from you from any of the other players?
I thought Jacoby Lane out of USC didn't look as good as he was hyped up to be. I mean, that's really it. I mean, Sam McGowan out of Kentucky fumbled after a long run. Kalen Green out of Arkansas, the quarterback. I don't know if anyone liked him beforehand, but I didn't think he looked that great. I mean, that's really it. There wasn't really that many offensive standouts. It was very much about the defense, I felt. Defense and offensive line a little bit.
Absolutely. So hopefully a few of these guys rose in draft stock, and we are going to be at the combine in about 3 weeks. So we are getting dangerously close to the NFL draft prep season, and we are also getting dangerously close to free agency. So stay tuned for that. But the NFL awards that we had talked about a month ago, we had picked them over the summer. And the first one up was the Offensive Rookie of the Year that we did. And you and I both picked Ashton Genty. Unfortunately, he wasn't even a finalist, as we had mentioned. Tet McMillan does win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I know you believe Abuka deserves some votes as well, but McMillan had the vast majority of votes in this one. Comeback Player of the Year, you had Tua Tagovailoa, and I had Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey did win Comeback Player of the Year. And so I will take a little victory lap on that one. And Alex, you can take a victory lap on this next one here with Coach of the Year, Mike Vrabel. You had picked Mike Vrabel, and I picked Sean McDermott, who is fired, which is actually a little bit laughable. Offensive Player of the Year, you had Jamar Chase, I had Jahmyr Gibbs, and it was Jackson Smith Njigba. So all the J's there. You had Jamar, and I had Jahmyr, and Jackson ended up winning the Offensive Player of the Year. And then we got down to the MVP, where you and I both picked Joe Burrow. And it was razor thin, so thin, the margin of victory in this one. In a vote of 24 first place votes to 23 first place votes, Matthew Stafford edges out Drake May to be the MVP of the NFL. And in his acceptance speech, Matthew Stafford let it be known that he is returning to the Rams in 2026. Thoughts on all of that there, Alex?
I thought that Drake May should get it since he's actually in the Super Bowl and he had a really good season. But I'm okay with Matt Stafford. He's older. He's close to the end, even though he's playing in 2026. It looks good for them for next year that he's playing. I think that they, with their 2 first-round picks this year, might be looking at potentially getting a quarterback or trading
Nussmeier.
out or trading out to next year
It is
and
true.
getting more picks next year.
It is possible. We'll see if they can find a dance partner, but that would be really cool. But that puts a bow on 2025 for the most part. We just have one 2025 season item left, and that is the Super Bowl 60 preview. And it is the NFC champions, Seattle Seahawks, at the AFC champions, New England Patriots, and the Patriots have chosen to wear white in this matchup. Alex, are you picking your coach of the year to win this one, or are you picking the reigning offensive player of the year to win this one, Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I think it's pretty clear that Seattle has the majority of the advantages. So, I mean, I think Seattle wins.
Do you have any prediction on what a potential score would look like in this game?
It's tough because a lot of it comes down to, can Drake May make big plays? Will Sam Darnold stay calm and confident? Honestly, I think it's probably like a 31-24 kind of game. Maybe worse than that. Honestly, it could be a beatdown game. I don't know.
Yeah, I have 31-17 Seahawks. I have them winning by 2 scores in this one. The line for the spread is the Seahawks are favored by 4.5 points. So it sounds like both of us would take the Seahawks with against the spread. And the total points are 45.5. So both of us are over that. You're at 55 and I'm at 48. So that is some bets that I would look into potentially taking this go around. Interesting prop bets that I would consider taking in this one is Drake May over 37.5 rushing yards, because I think he's going to be running for his life in this one against Seattle's defense. And I don't think 37.5 is a lot for him to hit. And I do think one of, if not both of the backs for the Patriots will have good receiving days, because that's one area that the Seahawks have proven to be a little weaker at. Just even last week, the screen game with running backs was a little more painful for them. So Ramondre Stevenson has a 24.5 over under, and Trayvon Henderson only has a 2.5 yard over under. So that's just one catch for him, because his over under for catches is 0.5 catches for Henderson as well. So do expect a bigger Stevenson game overall, but interesting prop bets here if you want to put a little bit of cash on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that will be interesting.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what happens in this game. I won't be doing any prop bets like national anthem time or anything like that. That is too sketchy for me, because that could be manipulated on the fly by the artist. But Alex, on deck, we are going to start turning our focus to the 2026 season. Do you think that we can get together a 2026 fantasy first round for redraft next week? Your 12 guys.
Maybe. We can see.
All right. Well, everyone will have to stay tuned. I'm going to tweak mine to have it ready to go. Anything else there, sir?
That does it for another episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading or listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy, and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Hi, everybody.